The last couple of years haven't been easy, they've been very challenging. Obviously the drought was a major concern for us. Then we had fire, which was absolutely devastating. We had flood. Then we were hit with the coronavirus.
As a fifth-generation beef producer, Robert McKenzie is used to dealing with challenges. But now he's facing the potential loss of his biggest export market.
It cripples Australia because China's a massive trading partner of Australia for sure.
The local abattoir, which processes 90% of his beef, is one of 4 that's been barred from the lucrative Chinese market.
Those 4 plants make up about 35% of the Australian beef exports to China. I spoke to quite a few customers and let them know that obviously we'll update them as soon as we know what's going on, because they were as much in the dark as we were.
China suspended the beef imports over labelling and health certification issues, but it came just weeks after China's ambassador said his people might lose their appetite for Australian beef and wine because of this.
Now, it would seem entirely reasonable and sensible that the world would want to have an independent assessment of how this all occurred.
As well as the beef bans, China has since slapped an 80% tariff on Australian barley imports.
What I'm really concerned about is this potential for a trade war to erupt and to damage Queensland's exports, to damage Queensland's reputation, and to damage Queensland's jobs and livelihoods.
The comments of Ambassador Cheng were unhelpful, and they certainly did imply that there could be an attempt of economic coercion. Now, Chinese authorities have subsequently been clear that the issues that have been raised around barley and beef are long-standing 12 to 18-month-long administrative processes, and we're responding to the detail of those.
But the Trade Minister's calls to his Chinese counterpart have not been returned.
Look, I've not spoken with my Chinese counterpart this week. I would hope that we can have discussions there. The Australian government is always willing to engage in thoughtful dialogue with our partners around the world, even on issues that we might disagree upon.
Is it fair what China's done with barley and beef, even though they're 2 separate cases? Obviously not. Kind of fairness doesn't come into it. In some ways, superpowers do what they can do because they can get away with it. It's a very difficult issue for Australia to manage.
China watchers believe trade tensions are a symptom of the worsening relations between Australia's biggest export partner and our most important military ally.
I mean, I'd say that the US-China relationship right now is as bad as I've seen it in my lifetime. But to be clear, there's still room for it to get worse, right? There always is. And I mean, there's no trust between the two sides.
China could have prevented the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people worldwide.
And they have got to be held to account. The world needs to know it.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center.
China is a pariah state.
This is the kind of botched Chernobyl-like cover-up.
The American public, I think, is finally beginning to get it. They're seeing the communist nation for what it is, an enemy of the United States and of free people everywhere.
We're not in a new Cold War yet, though we are heading in that direction, and it's certainly possible. The Americans they want someone to beat on, and there is broad bipartisan agreement that the Chinese deserve quite a bit of blame, and not just for the original sin of the pandemic, but also a host of other behaviors that Americans are increasingly unhappy about, particularly in the economic and the IT space.
Some analysts believe Australia could face more trade reprisals for questioning or criticising Beijing, a tactic designed to sow divisions here.
China certainly would like to drive a wedge between the government and the business community, but people in the meat sector, farmers, tourism, education, wine, all one way or another will be lobbying the federal government to perhaps change their China policy, to ease off on China so their own industries aren't hurt. So that's a really potent weapon that China wants to exploit in Australia.
Exporters like Robert McKenzie just want the politicians to sort it out.
They're the people that need to address this, need to come up with a plan and a solution and fix it if possible. And it needs to be done straight away because people like us and many, many others are suffering straight out of some serious times that we've had in the last 2 years.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.